Hello,
Okay,
Alan. Are you ready for your reading
got it.
today?
I am indeed. I'm all ready.
You're on your starting blocks,
I'm on the starting blocks, ready
which,
for the pistol to fire. Go.
right. So to remind our viewers, we are still doing the book, My Cousin Rachel,
My cousin Rachel, level 4.
for beginners. So
Right.
off you go, Alan. Oh, I moved it too quickly then. Off we go.
This is chapter 11, Reynaldi again. The new year began and my birthday on the 1st of April was 3 months away. How I wanted to have control of my own money. I was tired of Nick Kendall being my guardian. However, I could spend money on the house. I decided to make it beautiful for Rachel. There were many repairs to be done. From January, I had nearly 20 men working for me. The bill for their work was sent to my godfather. Rachel and I had many plans for the garden too. Work had started on a sunken wall garden. We had found the design for the water garden in one of Rachel's books. Because there were so many workmen in the house, we could not have visitors. My cousin Rachel and I stayed quietly at home and I was very happy. I loved to watch Rachel move around about the house. I loved to hear her voice. When her hands touched my heart beat faster. Oh, he's getting the love bug.
Now, would you call this infatuation or a
Well,
crush?
Well, it could be infatuation, but it could be the development of genuine love. He likes everything that he sees, everything, her voice, the way she walks, you name it. He's really besotted with this lady.
Besotted is a good word, which I will write later in the post below. Besotted, right, very good. Now, here we had one word, sunken water
Sunken
garden.
garden, yes.
So sunken, it means below normal level. So if the garden is normally on this
That's right.
level,
Below
it
ground
means
level.
below and it's sunk to another level below. I
Yes.
think everything else is very easy. Do you think our main character is spoiled or naive? I'm not sure.
I don't know, but he's probably got they may be on a slope and it's a tiered garden. It goes down in different levels, maybe. I don't know. Sunken.
No, but what I was asking you is if our main character is spoiled, the man who likes Rachel, is he spoiled or is he naive? What do you think he's like as a
Well,
person?
I mean, he's never had a woman before, so he's really he's going to find out, but he can't help his natural feelings for somebody of the opposite sex, and it comes to everybody at some time in their life.
Right. No, but I'm saying that he's spending all this money on her and he's besotted with her. So, like you said, maybe because it's his first contact with a
Yes,
female. Maybe it's because
yes.
of that. Okay, then it was just a comment. Right. The first days of spring came and the sun shone. Then something happened which took all my happiness away again. Oh, he's very up and down, isn't he?
Oh,
I had kept one of Ambrose's old coats to wear myself. One day, as I was walking in the woods, I felt something in a pocket. It was another letter from Ambrose. I was pleased that I was alone. I walked on until I reached the highest place on the estate. Ambrose had always loved to sit there. I sat down and held the letter in my hands. I did not want to open it. I was afraid that Ambrose had written something bad about Rachel. We were so happy together now that I wanted to forget the past. But at last I opened the letter. I had been writing 3 months before it had been written 3 months before his death, but he had never posted it. So I'd written it and left it in the pocket. My cousin Rachel, Ambrose wrote, had been expecting a child, but it had died. The doctors told her that she could never have another child. At first, Rachel was quite quiet and unhappy. Then she began to spend money carelessly. Ambrose suspected that Rinaldi was in love with her. For these reasons, Ambrose had not signed his new will, in which he left everything to Rachel. So she had, from what we can see here, a miscarriage because she didn't have the baby. And sometimes women, because of their hormones, etc., have a very bad time after things related to pregnancy. Yeah. Okay, Alan.
Ambrose also wrote about his terrible headaches. He told me about the fever, which at first made him violent. Then it made him very weak. Ambrose was very unhappy, and he had written, "You are the only person who can help me, Philip. Are Rachel and Rinaldi trying to poison me for my money? I must know."
Mm-hmm. So the plot thickens, right? The plot thickens. Here we see Philip reading the letter that he spoke about in the woods. So the woods is a similar word to forest, many trees together. I hid the terrible letter on a large stone and walked slowly back to the house. I could not forget Ambrose's words, but I decided that Rachel must never know about the letter. In 3 weeks' time, the estate and all the money would be mine. But this was not right. Ambrose had made a new will, but he had not signed it because of his illness. His money belonged to Rachel. She must have it. That night, I asked Rachel about Ambrose's will. She showed me a copy of it, which I read carefully. Everything had been left to Rachel. Then, if she had died without children, everything was to be mine. Why did Ambrose not sign this will? I asked. Tell me, Rachel. I don't know, she answered quietly. Perhaps when he knew we could not have children, his feelings changed. Perhaps it was only a mistake. But when the headache started, Ambrose suspected me of terrible things. I can't speak about that time. Please leave me alone, Philip. I can't answer any more questions. I have reasons for my questions, I said. You will understand in 3 weeks' time.
By the following morning, I had made up my mind. I rode into town and, with the help of a lawyer, wrote out a document. In 3 weeks' time, all my property would be given to Mrs. Rachel Ashley. The jewels would also belong to her too, but she would not be able to sell the house or the land. I have one question, the lawyer said. Mrs. Ashley is a quiet young woman. What will happen to the property if she marries again? I thought for a moment. The house and the estate must always belong to the Ashleys. If she marries, I said, or if she dies, the property becomes mine again. that must be made clear. I told the lawyer that the document must be kept secret. He promised to send me a copy on the last day of March. I felt very happy as I rode home. My dear Rachel would never leave me now. We would live in perfect happiness forever.
Mm. Do you remember of any saying which talks about money and it's like the evil that becomes between two people, no?
Yeah.
Money is never a good thing, no? Money causes a lot of problems, doesn't it?
So money is the root of all evil.
Ah, there we are. You have remembered something.
It
Money
is a
is
typical
the
phrase.
root to
Yeah.
all evil. So we
Yes.
could take that as money causes problems, no?
It can do, yes. It's not always brings you happiness, no.
Right. I felt very happy as I rode home. My dear Rachel would never leave me now. We would live in perfect happiness forever. When I reached the house, I heard voices in the library. The door opened and Rachel came out, laughing happily. "Come and see my visitor, Philip," she cried. "He has come a long way to see us both." The man stood up and held out his hand. It was Rinaldi. We stood there looking at each other. Then Rinaldi began talking about his journey. Rachel suggested that he should stay in the house for a few days. I could say nothing. During dinner, Rachel and Rinaldi talked about people and places I knew nothing about. Often they spoke in Italian. I could not understand a word.
How frustrating.
We can imagine that, can't we? He would be seething, could we say?
Seething, yes. Jealousy will be rising up.
So we can imagine he would be hot under the collar
Very much
and
so.
seething because of his jealousy of Rinaldi.
Yep.
Seething.
Feeling very insecure as well.
Mm. Right, off you go, Alan.
Rinaldi and I have some business to discuss. He has brought papers I must sign. They went upstairs and I walked alone in the gardens. I felt cold and unhappy. I stayed outside until the light went out in Rinaldi's room. I had just reached my own room when there was a quiet knock on my door.
So
Rachel.
this picture isn't fantastic, but we get an idea, no? She looks so happy and gay about everything that's going on. And he has an evil looking face because of the dark eyes, the nose, no, and the chin. And he just looks miserable. So I think the artist, even though it's a very simple drawing, has captured the evilness of Rinaldi, the happiness of Rachel, and the misery of Philip, no?
Mm-hmm.
"I came to wish you good night," my cousin Rachel said. "Why didn't you come and drink tisana? Is it? Or how did you say we say it? This word? Tisana?
What, Tisana? I've never heard of it before, but
I looked it up. It's a tea.
Tisana.
It's a herbal tea, which is
Oh, is it? Oh, right.
Yes,
Oh, right.
I looked it up the other day because we came with it the other day. And I said to you it was wine, and it isn't wine. It's a healthy herbal tea. So she said, "Why didn't you come and drink tisana with us, Philip? You must make Rinaldi welcome. He's a very old friend of mine." Rinaldi stayed with us for 7 days. As he laughed and talked with Rachel, I began to hate him. It was time for Rinaldi to leave. He took my cousin Rachel's hand and kissed it. "Write and tell me your plans," he said. "I shall be in London for some time." "I'm making no plans until after the 1st of April, Rachel replied with a laugh. Rinaldi smiled. I hope Philip enjoys his birthday, he said. 1st of April is All Fool's Day, isn't it? But perhaps Philip doesn't want to remember that. When Rinaldi had gone, Rachel smiled at me. You have been very good, Philip, she said. Are you glad we're alone again? So, Rinaldi said it's the 1st of April, is All Fool's Day. So he was being very sarcastic, no? Saying that indirectly that Philip was someone who was silly, no? Do you remember the 1st of April?
Do I remember?
The 1st of April, the tradition.
Oh, yes, I did indeed. I thought, although I don't think they make a lot of it here in Spain. I couldn't honestly say, but nobody's come along and played a prank on me. So it's been and gone, thank goodness.
No, because in Spain, Alan, it's the 22nd of December.
Oh, is it? Oh,
yes. So we have the 1st of April. And you can play a trick on someone until 12 o'clock midday.
Wow, I never knew that.
And then after 12 o'clock midday in England or the UK, you cannot play any more tricks. Whereas in Spain on the 22nd, it's Dia de los Inocentes, the Day of the Innocent.
Oh,
and you can play tricks all day long. Right, so that is the difference between one. But Rinaldi was being very sarcastic and laughing at Philip. No, right, go on then, Alan.
Chapter 12, All Fool's Day. As my birthday came nearer, I became more and more excited. Rachel laughed at me. You are like a child, she said. What plans are you making for the day? But I had no plans. All I wanted was Rachel. All I wanted was that Rachel should know about the document. And one more thing, Rachel should have all the family jewels. I went to the bank myself. I brought them back to the house and hid them in my room. On the last day of March, I rode over to Nick Kendall. First, I handed him a copy of Ambrose's will. My godfather looked at it carefully. I don't understand, Ambrose didn't sign it, he said. But we have done all we can for Mrs. Ashley. I don't agree, I said. I want to make everything right. And I handed him a copy of the document the lawyer had prepared. Read this, I said, and remember that my cousin Rachel knows nothing about it. So these are the alterations he's making on the will, of course. Yeah. He's not going to go.
I think he's been a bit silly because he could have done it in a different way and they could have not give her everything but something. I wish Signor Rinaldi had seen this, Nick Kendall said slowly. He told me how careless Miss Ashley is with money. This document of yours gives her great powers over the property. I have to ask you one question, Philip. Are you in love with Mrs. Ashley? My face went red. I am only doing what Ambrose wanted, I said. Perhaps, Nick Kendall answered, but people are talking Mrs. Ashley should leave, get married again. She might marry you if you ask her. I'm not sure she would not, I said. I'm not sure she would not, I said. Nick Kendall watched me sadly as I signed my name on the document. There are some women who bring sadness to all those who love them, he said. They cannot help it. I think Miss Ashley is one of those women. Now, when you go red in the face, what do we say? You are?
Embarrassed.
And blushing.
Blushing, yes. It's funny, it's like all the blood comes to the surface of the skin, and you do go a reddish colour. There's no doubt about it. I say, you're blushing, Alan. Blushing.
Yeah, blushing. So you do it through embarrassment or you're uncomfortable.
Yes,
And it's normal to do with the nervous system. I suppose that's why
yes. Your
I've
brain
gone red
triggers.
quite a few times without realizing it myself, without being able to control it.
Yeah.
The sun was setting. I know it's your turn, Alan. Sorry.
Well, it doesn't matter. The sun was setting as I rode home. I bathed, changed my clothes, and went into the dining room. Rachel wanted to know where I had been, but I laughed and told her nothing. After dinner, I was too excited to sit still. I walked down to the sea. There was a moon and the night was warm. I took off my clothes and for a few minutes I swam in the ice-cold water. When I got back to the house, it was 5 minutes to 12. I could not wait any longer. I stood under Rachel's window and called her name. She looked out. I said, I have something for you, Rachel.
Did you know that cold water is very good for us? Do you ever swim in cold water or have a cold shower?
Oh, often. Well, when I go in the sea, it's freezing cold, but I have to grim and bear it just for a minute until I acclimatise. But I'm always afraid of getting a heart attack.
Oh, God.
Well, the sudden drop in temperature can do all sorts of things to your ticker.
Right. So the heart can be called our ticker, no? Our
Yeah.
ticker, something that's beating. I do this 3 times a week when I get into the swimming pool. It's very cold. And for a minute, like you said, the body temperature is quite brusque. I suppose
Well,
if you wanted to, you could wet your wrists, the
yes,
back
you've
of
got to
your
be very
neck.
careful. Yeah, it's got to be relatively slow, not all of a sudden you're boiling hot in the hot sun and then you dive under a cold shower. That really is asking for trouble.
Yes,
I know a
but
friend of mine fainted when he did that. He didn't realise it gave him palpitations and he was really quite scared because he had
right.
this sudden drop in temperature and his body didn't really have time to adjust.
I think I agree with you. For being from one extreme to the other can't be very good. But
Yes,
if we get in cold water, it's supposed to be very good for us.
yeah.
Our body appreciates it. Then I ran to my room for the jewels. I want you to have these now, I said. Listen, the clock is striking 12 and it's the 1st of April. I'm 25. I can do what I like. I put the documents on her table and began to open the boxes of jewels. Rachel's eyes opened wide in surprise, and suddenly now here we can see him smiling, looking down at Rachel, giving her the jewels. So we were laughing together. They were both happy. He for giving her and her for receiving. Right, off you go.
As I looked at her, I remembered the other Ashley woman who had worn it. You have given me so much, Rachel said at last. I have only a small present for you. What else can I give you? Tell me. There's one thing, I said. I looked into her dark eyes. They shone like very brightly in the candlelight. She laughed softly and blew out the candle. We were alone in the darkness. I did not leave her room until sunrise. Happiness had come to me at last. Rachel accepted me and my love. She was the first woman I ever loved, and she was the last. I remember walking alone in the garden as the birds began to sing, and Rachel and I had been away together, always been together now, day and night, night after night, for all our lives. I went back to my room and slept. After breakfast, I went into the garden again. I picked the most beautiful flower I could find.
Wow. He's passionately in love with Rachel, no? Rachel was in bed eating her breakfast. I threw the flowers on the bed in front of her. Good morning again, I said. I have come to say one thing. I love you. Rachel looked up without smiling. You should not come into my room so early, she said. The servants will talk. I smiled but said nothing. I went downstairs. I wanted to tell the servants that Rachel and I were going to be married. Then I decided that we would tell them together later. I walked into the garden until it was time for Rachel to leave her room. The day was fine and I decided we would go out riding. But when I got back to the house, Rachel had already left. I waited for a long time, but she did not return. At last, I walked along the road, hoping to meet her. When I saw the carriage, I stopped it. I got in and sat down beside Rachel. She was wearing a veil, and I could not see her face. Where have you been? I asked her. To see your godfather. You cannot change anything, I told her. I'm 25. Everything I have is yours.
Yes, I understand that now, Rachel said, but I wanted to be sure. Her voice was quiet. I did not think she was smiling. Let me look at your face, I said. She lifted her veil, and there was no love in her eyes now. I think Lewis was a little more friendly today, Rachel said. She will make you a good wife. We made plans to meet in London together. I looked at her in surprise. It was unkind of her to make jokes about Louise. And why was Rachel talking about London? We had made no plans to go there. Come into the woods, Rachel, I whispered. I want to kiss you so much. She did not answer, but took something out of her bag. Here is your present, she said, and gave me a small gold pin for my tie. If I had known about the money, I would have brought something larger. As I dressed for dinner, I could think of only one thing. Money is the one way to please her, the only way to please her.
Oh, that sounds very sad.
A bit of a shock, isn't it?
When we sat down together for my birthday dinner, Rachel was wearing the pearl collar. We both drank wine and I started to feel happier. Time would soon pass. When the morning time was over, Rachel would be my wife. While we were sitting at the table, the candles came into the room. When they had wished me happy birthday, I stood up, my glass in my hand. From this moment, I have been the happiest of men, I said. I want you to be the first to know. Rachel has promised to be my wife. I smiled at them all, but Rachel's face was hard and cold.
Oh dear.
Have you gone mad, Philip? She said. She looked at the candles. You must forgive him. He has drunk too much wine. I'm sure he will apologize. Rachel got up and the others followed her out of the room. I stood without moving until I heard them leave the house. When Rachel came back, we stared at each other without speaking. Then Rachel said, "You had better go to bed, Philip, before you say any more foolish things." "Foolish?" I repeated. "But last night?" "Surely you love me, Rachel. Last night you proved that you loved me. It was a promise of marriage." Oh dear.
Change the tune. No, Philip, I had no thought of marriage. I was thanking you for the jewels. That was all. There was no love. I looked at her hard, cold face. I began to understand what Ambrose had suffered. She had everything. What else could I do? Suddenly, I wanted to frighten her, to show her my strength. I put my hands round her neck and looked into her eyes. "Will you marry me now?" I whispered. Her dark eyes were full of fear, but she did not speak. I loosened my fingers. There were red marks on her white skin. Rachel turned and went upstairs. I followed her, but she was too quick for me. She closed the door and locked it. As she stood there, I saw myself in a mirror on the wall. There I stood, tall, awkward, white-faced. But was it myself or Ambrose standing there? As I lay in bed, I heard the clock striking midnight. All Fool's Day was over.
So, I think he has been the fool of the day, no?
Well, was it an April Fool or was it real? All will be revealed in the next chapter, folks.
Yes. So we have read 2 chapters today, and
Yes.
we've left it just at a very interesting moment when Philip has given her everything. She's denied that she's in love with him, and he has felt awkward, bad, confused.
Betrayed, yes, betrayed, yes. Whatever.
So Rinaldi was right. He was the fool of the day on his birthday.
Yes, yes.
For all the sadness it gives us to say it, he was right. Okay,
Yeah.
Alan. So we will say goodbye.